feel it in my fingers. I feel it.
Tonight, as you may have guessed from the first track, Love Is All Around, which you'll recall was at number one for what felt like 16 years, which was amazing, is a beloved artist who started out his music career as frontman of the legendary Wet, Wet, Wet. So welcome to the one and only Marty Pellow.
All right, Jackie, how's it going?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm smashing. Nice to talk to you today. I saw they were saying you can have a wee chat with Jackie. I said, I've not spoken to Jackie in years.
I know.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's been a long time, yeah. But and it's weirdly, you kind of been like a marker in the road for me in my career, because I remember going way back when I had my first job at West Sound and Air on the radio. I think I played a cassette of this unknown band called Wet Wet Wet.
That's right. You were there right at the very beginning, you know, and was one of the people who championed that Wet 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 at the very beginning, you know. So I mean that's special, and you were there through a large majority of the first decade of that band. I would say you were always popping up, and you know, and TVs and stuff like that, or coming to visitors, and you know, I remember them fondly.
I do remember you all throwing me in a swimming pool when I came to do an interview in LA.
So you did. You came to LA as well. I remember that. Yes, that's right. We all sang round the piano.
That's right. Yeah.
And you threw you in the swimming pool. Let that be a lesson to you, Jackie.
And final selfish memory of mine is when I was at Radio 1 talking them into taking the road show to the Isle of Arran.
Oh, I remember that. Loved that gig.
And you guys came over in a helicopter?
That's right, as you do. It's the only way you arrive when you go and visit Arran.
Yeah, it's a tad more reliable than the boats just now, that's for sure. But listen, Marty, we're going to go way back through the mists of time to figure out where those soulful influences came from. But just before we do that, let's remind people that you are currently and perpetually on tour. This week you're in Taunton, Evesham, Tamworth, Spalding and Mansfield, and on you go with that through till June. Then you have your Lost Chapter tour kicking off for a couple of months in the autumn, and next spring, most importantly, you're doing a really big popped-in, sold-out orchestral arena tour yourself. That's in March of 2024, and it sounds brilliant. It was such a seminal album, and the songs, of course, hold up beautifully. So why wouldn't you?
Thank you very much.
Right, so let's do a bit of soul searching, shall we, from way back when. Growing up in the 70s in Clydebank, just outside Glasgow city centre, of course. Was it a very musical childhood?
One of my earliest memories of has been in my mum and dad's room and kitchen in Clydebank. You know, we all lived in this a kind of small, I want to say apartment. That sounds quite, but it was in a tenement block, and one of my earliest memories is my mum standing at the Belfast singing, and I think the music was always on in our house, and you know, as I looked at my mum, I was sitting at the fireplace, Jackie, and I looked at my mum. She was washing the dishes and at the Belfast sink, and she was singing, and I think even right then, and one of my earliest memories, because of the joy that was on her face, I think right there and then, I was programmed that I was going to be a singer, because I loved the way it connected with me, even as a child.
Isn't that amazing?
Just that, to have that, you know, that sense of melody. And because she was laughing and smiling and playing with me, I really connected in a way with music. And I think that right then, that was it.
That was it for you.
I was going to be a singer. Oh,
do you have a clear memory of the first single you would have bought with your own pocket money, or?
Oh yes, the 3+3 album in Woolworths, and the special bin, the cheap bin by the Isley Brothers.
Oh my goodness!
With Summer Breeze, and it was in 1973.
Summer breeze makes me feel fine. Blowing through the jasmine.
The reason why I bought the record, Jackie, was because I liked the way they looked.
I was going to say, was it a lucky dip, or did you know what you were buying? Because obviously that's a huge soul influence, which has been a big dominant factor for you.
Exactly, serendipity must have played its card there for me yet again, you know, because I just looked at the album cover and I thought, oh, I really like that. I really like how they look, because it was a colourful album cover, and they were all dressed in the way that they did. It was, you know, and it just appealed to me. And I bought it. I didn't know what it was, Well, I took it home and I just played it all the time.
Oh,
And the irony is, Jackie, is two of my favourite records were recorded in the same studio at the same time in 1973 or 72, 73, and that was Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder and
wow.
the Isley Brothers 3+3. Both of those guys were in the same studio. I think it was Sunset Sound when they were recording. So in Studio A, the Isley Brothers were doing that record, and Stevie Wonder was doing Inner Visions. And two of those records were pivotal in my apprenticeship, you know, learning how to sing and stuff like that.
So when you first started to get together a band, you know, was it very much, right, this is going to be a soul band, this is the kind of music we're going to do?
No, funny enough, Jackie, you know, we played within our capabilities at that time. The sound that came out when I sang leaned more that way. You know, I didn't. If I sang the way I speak, I'd be in the Proclaimers. Let's face it. You know, but the sound that came out was it leaned itself to that way.
Oh yeah.
Even although the music that we were listening to wasn't necessarily from that. You know, I listened to a lot of soul music, but you know, the other guys in the band, they were listening to maybe The Fall or Magazine and very alternative music, and you know, listening to The Clash and Joy Division. So it was very eclectic.
Yeah.
The musical influences that was coming in from us. Sometimes that didn't translate into the music we made, but we were always very into our record collection, you know. Back then, that's what we used to do. We just used to listen to records all the time, you know, go over to people's houses with your poly bag full of records, you know.
Right, well, let's get another track in now, and we'll go with a Stevie Wonder tune from the Inner Visions album that you just mentioned as being pivotal in your own apprenticeship as a singer. This is Living for the City on Greatest Hits Radio as part of our great conversation with Marti Pellow.
A boy's born in Hot Dam, Mississippi.
Living for the City, Stevie Wonder from the album Inner Visions, hugely influential on tonight's very special guest on the evening show, Marti Pellow. And we'll be back with more musical memories from Marti for our great conversation coming up next. Welcome back to the evening show with Jackie Brambles, where it's just you, me, and our very special guest, Marti Pellow, cozying on in for a great conversation for the entire 8 o'clock hour. So, Marti, before the break, we learned how hugely influential American soul music was on you when you were a kid. As you got a little older, though, how much of an impact as you grew up did going to see live gigs have on you?
Oh yeah, you know, right in the very beginning, you know, even in my very younger age, a whole lot of a bunch of guys, we go to see bands like Squeeze and Costello, Elvis Costello, and you know, so we were always going to see live acts. We save up our pocket money in the weekend, or you know, sometimes when about the ages of our early teenage years, we'd go to see old bands like I just said, like Talking Heads or whatever we could save up to go to see, you know. So going to see live bands, yeah, was very important for us.
And take us to the time when you were sort of, because from my recollection, when I got that cassette when I was 19, I must have been, when I started out in radio, it was Scotland was, particularly Glasgow, was really rich with musical talent.
Indeed it was, Jackie, you know, and I think that all stemmed from when all the record companies were looking at previous acts, you know, or the postcard era music, you know, that was coming out.
Yeah.
You know, that was happening there with Orange Juice and the Fire Engines and Joseph Kay, and, you know, there was a lot of alternative music and bands were coming up through Glasgow, and you know, I think record companies started to focus in there, and you know, bands like Deacon Blue and Wet 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 and Texas, and I remember Hipsway also, and you know, obviously Del Amitri. We were all kind of coming from that period, from 85 to 87. So it was quite prolific there. A lot of bands were being really looked at by the major record companies. So I remember it fondly.
Post office clocks put up signs saying position closed. Van Goghs for the price of a hospital wing.
Was it sort of collegial, or was it a bit of competitive about who was going to break it through first?
It's funny, you know, because I meet artists now at this period of my life that I met in 87, and I think we were all trying to do our own thing, that we probably weren't very approachable to each other.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature. Maybe we were just insecurities and stuff like that. Maybe that was coming into play. But I always remember most of the people that I met being absolutely lovely. The guys in Texas and, Della Mitri guys were, they were always very polite. And, if we'd meet them at Top of the Pops or something.
I think that was right across the board. I remember Kim Wilde chatting away saying how lovely it is now to go in sort of these rewind festivals, 80s revival festivals, and everyone's hanging out backstage and appreciating each other's artistry and being friends. But she says back then she'd be furious if Claire Grogan got the front cover of Smash Hits and she didn't. And, and they wouldn't talk when they saw each other at Top of the Pop.
That's brilliant.
Was there a moment when, was it, signing on the dotted line of a record company? What was the moment where you thought, oh my God, this is actually happening. We're gonna break through now?
Well, funny enough, I think it happened, when, we always had this little thing where we'd make tapes and send them out to friends. And when we were doing little gigs before we were signed, it would be to maybe 100 people. And then that suddenly went to 200 people, 300 people, 400 people. And then I think we were playing the Pavilion. It might have been the Pavilion in Glasgow. And it was sold out, and then there was 1,000 people outside.
Wow.
I couldn't get in. And so record companies started to look at what this wee band was doing. How come they've got this wee kind of following? And I guess when we first signed our first publishing deal with Chrysalis Music, way back then, I think that was like a wee kind of a wee kind of affirmation that maybe this sort of thing might work for us, because when you're writing those songs in your bedroom, and literally we were, and all living with our mums and dads, you think, I wonder if this song will be a hit record. If it's a hit record, do you think we'll do Top of the Pops? And do you think, I don't know, but, I think because I was and still am a dreamer, it was just, that's what was going to happen. We're going to make a record, guys, and then we're going to go on Top of the Pops and call it naivety or whatever. It was just, that's the way it is. And if people don't subscribe to that, then I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to be a believer.
Yeah, because I think, if you surround yourself with dreamers, and surround yourself with people who can have that sort of affirmation, then that's when great things happen. If you surround yourself with people with people saying, well, that might not be the thing for you, or that might not be, then clearly, things will happen, like real life will come a knocking on the door, and your focus will change. And that's fine too, as life unfolds.
He would swear by his mouth, almighty.
Wishing I Was Lucky, the first single from Wet, Wet, Wet from their phenomenal debut album Pop Tin Sold Out, which, as well as just being a brilliant album in its own right, I think is also a contender for the best titled album ever. So with that hit, of course, came the rite of passage in the British music industry we all know, which is Top of the Pops. Do you remember how all that went down?
Oh, absolutely. I remember the first Top of the Pops and going there because... that was, I was recording Pop Tin Sold Out, and Wishing I Was Lucky started to climb into the charts. And, because we thought, we'll put that song out, and if it establishes, in the eye of the media, or people get to know us, and maybe with the second album or the third album, things will move. But boom!
Oh, yeah.
Wishing I Was Lucky seemed to grab people's attention, and I remember finishing off Pop Tin Sold Out. I think it was around about, we released Wishing I Was Lucky, I think it was around about March 87, and by April we were on Top of the Pops, and I remember a bus coming to pick us up and taking us to Top of the Pops, and we were so stoked.
Shall I tell you who you were on with? I'll tell you who was in the studio with you. I'm just looking it up. So it was your very first one, would have been Thursday the 14th of May 1987.
Oh, there you go. That was a month later.
Wishing I Was Lucky. And you would, in the studio with you would have been Johnny Hates Jazz,
Remember Johnny?
Cameo, Labby Seafree, and Tom Jones.
He had said, because he was in London, he was on tour, so the bus that we got was Tom Jones's bus to take us up from, because we were out in the countryside. I remember going having dinner with Cameo that night. Because he absolutely adored Wishing I Was Lucky, and we went and had dinner with him, because I just adored. I think he's an incredible producer and songwriter.
Larry Blackman.
Oh, just amazing, you know. And I was a bit disappointed that when we went out to have dinner, he didn't wear that cod piece, but, you know, you can't have everything, can you?
Back and Forth, the hit that Cameo were performing in the studio during the same Top of the Pops that featured Wet, Wet, Wet in their debut appearance. And we will be back with more magnificent musical memories from Marti Pellow and plenty of great conversations still to come next. Greatest Hits Radio with Jackie Brambles. If you've just tuned in, realise that our very special guest on tonight's Great Conversation is Marti Pellow and are now kicking yourself for having missed the first half. Fear not, you can catch up on the whole thing with Marti on our app or our website. We were talking before the break, Marti, about Wet, Wet, Wet breaking through with Wishing I Was Lucky, the huge success of Popped In, Sold Out. Let's talk about the influence of the legendary Memphis producer Willie Mitchell on you. I remember you spending a lot of time over the years in all the interviews I did with you. You always talked about him. You were always on your way back to or from his studio. He was very much a great influence over you.
You know, he was a great mentor for me, and I love his family dearly. And he introduced me to so many people, you know, Bobby Bland and Rufus Thomas when he was still alive. And, you know, so it was always, every day was a school day when you hung out with Willie Mitchell. He was just a beautiful man and a great producer and a lovely family. Who
was it that he had produced before we knew who Wet, Wet, Wet were that made you say, that's the guy who's producing us?
Well, he had a record label called High Records, and I was a big follower of High Records, you know, whether it was O.V. Wright or Otis Clay or Ann Peebles, and of course the seminal work he did with Al Green. We produced a lot of Al's Green, you know, and co-wrote Let's Stay Together, you know, and all those songs that I was just mad for.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, he's a very prolific producer, and, you know, and it's very much celebrated in Memphis, you know. And has worked with all sorts of artists. You know, a great ambassador for Memphis, Tennessee he was.
Let's talk about when you sort of went Wet, Wet, Wet sort of at its peak. If you were going to sort of pick a moment, whether that was you were on stage with a musical hero or you hit a particular sales number, what would have been the sort of the peak for you?
Well, I think that, you know, every day, you know, there was always something going on, and I think the first 10 years of Wet, Wet, Wet were the halcyon years for me. You know, that 87 and 97 chapter and is what I always cherish and focus on there, because it was the first time you would do Top of the Pops, or it contained the first time you went to America, the first time you played Madison Square Gardens, or the first time you did. Do you know, it had many, many different highs. So I guess not that my career is dictated by a chart number, especially these days for sure. But when you maybe have your first number one record or your number one album in it, and you know, and you see the joy in your, and not only your face but your family's face and your friends, because you see there's a sense of, well, isn't that our first gold record, or being involved when music has something, has a destination with that, like. Music comes together for like the Nelson Mandela concert at the beginning of her career, being involved in that, you know, and how pivotal that was, and what a prolific time that was for also many different artists to be involved in something that had a mission and a focus, and that's when, you know, music is a powerful tool.
Was there a particular artist on stage at that point when you were watching from the wings or playing with that you just?
We're sitting with Martin Knopfler and Tom, and we're talking away, and I think Tom said, "Oh, I'm nervous about this big audience, you know, and you know, it's a massive audience. It's probably one of the biggest audiences we've ever played to." He said, "I'm really nervous." And Martin Knopfler kind of looked at him and said, "Tommy, I wouldn't worry about the whatever it was, 45,000 people there. Just think of the 80 million people that are watching you on TV." And just kind of walked away, you know, and I think, you know, it was just like, okay, point taken, you know. So.
A love-struck Romeo, sing the streets of serenade. It was just that the time was wrong. Juliet.
Dire Straits with Sultans of Swing, which they played at the Nelson Mandela concert in 1990, which, of course, Wet, Wet, Wet were also a part of, along with An incredible lineup of peers: Sting, Peter Gabriel, Stevie Wonder, Simple Minds. And as you say, Marty, that's a big highlight for you of your time together as a band, to be involved in something, not with just such an amazing group of artists, but something as meaningful as that. So when the band split up and you embarked on a solo career, how was that for you initially, to be out there on your own on stage and it's just your name in lights on the marquee?
Well, you know, I've always been part of a team, so I guess that, you know, even as a solo artist, I'm still part of a team, you know, whether it's a songwriting partnership or I'm handpicking the musicians that I want to surround with me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always, you know, and I know that if I believe in the music that I write, or I have a good back catalogue of songs to draw from, I lean on them. And especially if it was like your first solo concerts or whatever, I mean, I still get nervous anyway, no matter what part of my career I'm at. You know, I still get nervous when I want to go on stage. I think what I love about it is when you go on and you lean on the audience, because I've yet to meet a person that buys a ticket to go to see something to have a terrible time. You know, I've never, you know, so I think once you go out there and you start to play the songs and it's no rocket science what I do. You know, I have a love and a passion for it and a childlike enthusiasm, even today, for it, Jackie. And I think that just resonates with people. So when I went out with my solo work or playing my Wet, Wet, Wet songs, it's a done deal, you know, because when I lean on those songs, they're crowd pleasers. You know, people just come out to have a good time. You know, the only thing I ask if you come and never see me live is, you know, bring a comfortable pair of shoes, because you're going to be dancing a lot, and you know, and some smiles, and I'm a happy puppy. You know, I'm a happy boy.
I love that. And you've had this lovely ongoing songwriting musical partnership with Chris Difford of Squeeze for many, many years. He was hilarious. He was telling us about at one point that you kind of moved into the family home at one point and were leading his kids astray with mountains of sweets at every corner. And it's a lovely partnership, a lovely friendship.
Well, I think that, you know, at the beginning of that, you know, I always liked relationships that you would have, dare I say, with Bernie Taupin or Elton John. I love that when you have a lyricist that you know your strengths, you know, you know, I love working with lyricists because you can put a spin on it. You know, I would say, Chris or whatever, you know, listen, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and, you know, a guy's in a bar and he doesn't want the evening to end or whatever. You know, I want to write a song about that. Where does it go? What's the journey? What's the reason behind that? And, you know, I'll just leave him to do his thing, and he would come up with these stories, and you know, and then I would just edit them to fit into the melodic structure that I'd written. So I always loved that, you know. And I'm still in awe of these great lyricists, because I first approached Costello. I was Costello for it, and he said, "No, you'd be there with Chris Difford." And you know, so I went down to Chris and. Yeah, I just took my slippers and I moved in, and that was it. Smiled, I wasn't leaving until that album was finished, and you know, I'm happy to say, you know, we did some great work.
Wanna get close to you? What can I do? I need you now.
Marti Pello's "Close to You," which got to number 9 in 2001. Well, listen, it's been such a treat to reconnect with you after all these years. I'm just in awe of everything that you've done has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. I know you've always got a tour on the go.
At the moment, I'm going back out to do another leg of Pello Talk, which is a book about basically my life story, you know, and things that have happened in my life, and I love that because it's a stream of conscience that happens, you know. I have no plan. I just kind of show up with a set that we made. It's supposed to be like my mum's living room in the 1970. And I never had a piano in my mum's living room, but you know, I have a piano player with me, and I just start by, you know, talking about music and why what makes the man, you know. What makes him as a singer, what makes him as a flawed man, what makes him as a, you know, all these things, and you know just talk about life and sing some songs in between it, whatever I fancy, and I love it. I love it. It's so free, and I love that.
I love it because I see sometimes on social media you're in your car driving to the next town for the next gig, and you're always, honestly, you're always so delighted to be heading off doing it. You just clearly, you know, you're just born to be a gigging musician, really.
Well, I think the beauty that lies in it is, like I said earlier on, Jackie, people buy a ticket to come out and hang out or to be inspired by music, you know, and if you're the catalyst for that, it's a good day at the office.
Well, listen, I'm going to ask you a very tough question, the hardest question of all. It's not to, I ask this of everybody, it's not a daft question like what's your favourite song, but it is, pick the final track of the hour for us. And it's a song that you revisit often because you know you are guaranteed that it will do the job, whether that's to comfort or inspire or uplift or energize or whatever it is you're looking to, whatever mood you're trying to find. What song would that be?
Well, I had the pleasure of working with Ailey Willis. The most important song that she did for me was when she wrote September with Boogie Wonder and Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire. So, I mean, and she was such a lovely lady, you know, I did some writing with her.
Oh, wow.
So, my choice, Jackie, is September. Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh, that's a fantastic one. That's a fantastic... Marty, thank you so much, my friend, for spending the time with us.
Jackie, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Take care out there on the road, young man.
All right, pal. All the best.
Marty Pellow, what a champ.